Have you ever felt like you're saying too much, yet not being heard? Or maybe you wonder, why is it that sometimes when you speak less, people listen more? Do you ever ask yourself, what if staying silent could speak louder than words? In a world filled with constant noise, chatter, and information overload, we often overlook the quiet strength that comes from saying nothing. Could it be that silence holds more power than we realize? Imagine this. You're in a heated conversation, emotions are running high, and both sides are trying to get their point across. Suddenly, you stop talking, and instead of reacting, you simply listen. What happens next? More often than not, the other person will pause, confused by your silence. It's as if your quietness creates a space for deeper reflection, forcing the other person to reconsider their words. Silence, in that moment, becomes a powerful tool, not of retreat, but of influence. Welcome to Wisdom Woven, where we dive deep into transformative life lessons, blending timeless wisdom with practical advice for modern-day challenges. If you're new here, we have so many more thought-provoking insights to share with you. Did you know that there are so many views on this channel, yet only 0.2% of viewers are subscribed? So, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel to join our growing community of wisdom seekers. Now, let's get into it. What is it about silence that confuses people? Why does silence often seem more powerful than speaking up? In Buddhism, silence is not just the absence of sound. It's a form of presence, a mindful state that allows us to observe without judgment. Silence can be a mirror. When we stop talking, we give others the chance to look at their own reflection, their own thoughts, and this can be unsettling. Buddhism teaches that silence is one of the most powerful forms of communication. It's not passive, but active. It allows us to absorb what is happening around us, and in that stillness, we find clarity. In fact, some of the greatest lessons in Buddhism come not from words, but from silence. It's in these moments of quiet reflection that we gain insight into the nature of reality, and the mind becomes free from distractions. But why does silence make people uncomfortable? When you stop talking, people often feel the need to fill the gap. They start to question themselves, wondering why you're not responding. This is where the real power of silence lies. In that confusion, others are forced to confront their own thoughts, their own insecurities. They project onto the silence whatever they think is happening, often revealing more about themselves than they intended. In everyday life, we see this happen all the time. Have you ever been in a meeting where someone goes silent after being asked a tough question? Suddenly, everyone becomes uncomfortable. People start fidgeting. Someone may try to jump in to break the tension. That moment of silence speaks volumes, more than any hurried answer could. Silence, in that context, shows confidence, self-control, and deep thought. The practice of mindful silence in Buddhism teaches us to observe without reacting. By not responding immediately, we give ourselves the opportunity to fully understand the situation. It's not about being passive or indifferent. It's about being present and aware. Silence gives us the time and space to consider our actions, and that's where real power lies. For those who practice Buddhism, silence is often seen as a form of meditation in daily life. It's a way to stay connected to the present moment, to listen to what's happening both inside and outside of ourselves. This is what makes silence so powerful. It's not just the absence of sound, but the presence of awareness. The next time you find yourself in a situation where you feel the urge to speak, pause for a moment. Consider what could be gained by staying silent. In that silence, you may find that you have more control, more understanding, and ultimately, more influence. So, remember, silence is not weakness. It's strength. It's clarity. It's control. In a world that constantly demands our attention, staying silent can often be the most powerful response of all. And once again, if you're enjoying this content, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom Woven. We're just getting started on this journey of uncovering life's deepest lessons. Together, stay with us, as there's so much more to explore. The nature of silence in Buddhism. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly sat in silence? Not just a quiet room, but real silence, where your mind stops racing, your thoughts slow down, and you simply are? In today's busy world, silence has become a rare experience. We're surrounded by noise, conversations, social media, our own thoughts running wild. Yet in Buddhism, silence is something deeply valued, something that holds immense power. Today, let's explore what silence truly means in the context of Buddhism and why it is so important. In Buddhism, silence is more than just the absence of talking. It's a state of being, a way to connect with the present moment. Many people think of silence as empty, but in reality, it is full of life and wisdom. It's in silence that we can hear the whispers of truth, the messages that get drowned out by the constant noise of daily life. Silence, in Buddhism, isn't about withdrawing from the world. It's about being fully present in it, in the most peaceful and attentive way. Have you ever noticed that when you stop talking, you begin to notice things more clearly? You hear the sounds of nature, the rhythm of your own breathing, and even the subtle shifts in your own thoughts. This is where the magic of silence begins. In silence, you become more aware of what's around you, and even more importantly, what's inside of you. Buddhism teaches us that the answers we seek aren't always found in conversation or debate, but often in the quiet spaces between our thoughts. Now, you might be wondering, why is silence so important in Buddhism? The answer is simple yet profound. Silence allows us to observe the nature of our own minds. When we stop talking, we stop distracting ourselves. We stop running from the present moment. In silence, we can face ourselves honestly, without the constant distractions that pull us away. And this, my friends, is where real growth happens. You see, the Buddha himself practiced silence as a way to cultivate wisdom. He often remained silent when asked certain questions, not because he didn't know the answer, but because he understood that the answer wasn't always necessary, or perhaps the question wasn't the right one. Sometimes, the silence itself was the answer. In that silence, those asking the questions had the opportunity to reflect, to think deeply, and to arrive at their own understanding. This is the beauty of silence in Buddhism. It creates space, space for reflection, space for understanding, and space for truth. When we are constantly speaking, we fill that space with our own ideas, judgments, and assumptions. But in silence, we allow that space to open up, and in that openness, wisdom can arise. One of the core teachings of Buddhism is that our minds are often clouded by distractions and illusions. Our thoughts, emotions, and desires can pull us away from seeing things as they truly are. Silence is a way to clear those clouds. It's a tool that helps us see clearly, without the fog of constant chatter and mental noise. When we sit in silence, we can begin to observe our thoughts without getting caught up in them. We can see them for what they are, just thoughts passing by like clouds in the sky. Think about how often we speak without really thinking. How many times have you said something only to regret it moments later? Or how often do we talk just to fill the silence, afraid of the discomfort that quiet can bring? In Buddhism, we learn that silence is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. It's in that silence that we can find clarity, peace, and understanding. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but isn't silence awkward? Doesn't it create tension? Yes, it can feel that way, especially in our society where we are so used to constant interaction. But here's the thing. That discomfort is part of the process. In Buddhism, we talk about sitting with discomfort, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional. Silence can bring up uncomfortable feelings because it forces us to face ourselves. It takes us out of our comfort zone, but in doing so, it helps us grow. In Buddhist practice, silence is often used during meditation. When we meditate, we aren't just sitting in silence. We are being silence. We let go of the need to speak, to explain, to control, and we simply observe. We observe our breath, our thoughts, our feelings, without trying to change them. This kind of silence allows us to be fully present, and in that presence, we find a deep sense of peace. But silence isn't just for meditation. It can be practiced in everyday life as well. The next time you're in a conversation, try pausing before you speak. Notice how that moment of silence feels. Notice how it changes the energy of the conversation. When we stop filling every moment with words, we create space for deeper connection and understanding. Silence allows us to listen, not just to others, but to ourselves. In Buddhism, there is a famous saying, "Silence is better than 1,000 words." This isn't just about speaking less. It's about understanding that words often fall short of expressing the full truth. There are things that cannot be captured in language, things that can only be understood through experience, through presence, and through silence. Silence also teaches us patience. When we are silent, we aren't rushing to respond or react. We are allowing things to unfold naturally, without forcing them. This is a key lesson in Buddhism, the idea that we don't need to control everything. Sometimes, the best action is no action at all. In silence, we learn to let go of our need for control, and we begin to trust in the natural flow of life. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're in a situation where someone says something hurtful or challenging. Our natural instinct is often to react immediately, to defend ourselves, or to argue. But what if instead you chose silence? What if you simply paused, took a breath, and observed the situation without reacting? In that moment of silence, you create space for wisdom to arise. You might realize that the comment isn't worth your energy, or you might gain insight into the other person's perspective. Either way, silence gives you the power to choose your response, rather than reacting out of habit or emotion. In Buddhism, this kind of mindful silence is a powerful tool for personal transformation. It helps us break free from the patterns of reactivity that keep us stuck in cycles of suffering. When we practice silence, we learn to observe our thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. We become more aware, more present, and more compassionate, both toward ourselves and others. So, what can we learn from the nature of silence in Buddhism? We learn that silence is not emptiness, but fullness. It's not passive, but active. It's a space where true wisdom can emerge. In silence, we find clarity, peace, and a deeper connection to the present moment. It is through silence that we can begin to understand the true nature of our minds, and it is through silence that we can begin to transform ourselves. The next time you find yourself in a noisy, busy situation, take a moment to pause. Embrace the silence, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. In that silence, you may discover something profound, something that words could never fully express. Remember, in Buddhism, silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the presence of awareness. It is a tool for deep reflection and a gateway to wisdom. So, take a breath, sit in silence, and allow yourself to be present with all that is. The role of mindfulness in silence. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning, and before you even open your eyes, your mind is already racing. Thoughts of the day ahead, things left undone from yesterday, and maybe even a little worry about the future. The noise begins before the world outside even does. How often do we stop to think about the noise inside our own heads? Today, we're going to talk about mindfulness, how it plays a role in silence, and why it's essential for finding peace within ourselves. When we think of silence, we often think of it as simply being quiet, as in not speaking or making any noise. But true silence, the kind that leads to inner peace, begins in the mind. In Buddhism, mindfulness is the key to understanding silence. It's not about forcing yourself to stop thinking or reacting, but about becoming aware of the thoughts and feelings as they arise without getting caught up in them. Mindfulness is like watching clouds pass by in the sky. The clouds are your thoughts, they come and go, and you simply observe them without judgment. Let's think about how often we let our thoughts take over. When something bothers us, we may react immediately without thinking, allowing our emotions to control us. This is where mindfulness comes in. By being mindful, you learn to observe your emotions and thoughts instead of reacting to them. This doesn't mean ignoring them. It means understanding them without being overwhelmed. Silence in the Buddhist sense isn't just about the absence of sound. It's the quieting of the mind, the stillness that comes when we are fully present. Have you ever noticed how, when you're truly focused on something, time seems to slow down? In that moment, you're practicing mindfulness. You're engaged with the present, not worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. This is what mindfulness brings to silence. It helps us to be in the here and now. Think of it like this. You're sitting by a peaceful lake. The water is calm, and the air is still. But suddenly, a stone is thrown into the lake, and ripples spread across the surface. Those ripples are like the thoughts in our minds. Each ripple is a reaction, an emotion, a thought that disturbs the calm. The practice of mindfulness teaches us how to keep that lake of the mind calm, even when stones are thrown into it. One of the simplest ways to practice mindfulness is through breathing. Yes, something as basic as breathing can change everything. When you focus on your breath, you anchor yourself to the present moment. You're not thinking about the past or worrying about the future. Just here, now, with each inhale and exhale. This is where mindfulness and silence come together. In Buddhism, there's a saying, when the mind is silent, the world is peaceful. It means that when we quiet the mind, everything else falls into place. This is because we're no longer reacting to the chaos around us. We can see things clearly and respond calmly. Think about the times in your life when you've reacted quickly, without thinking, and maybe regretted it later. Mindfulness gives us the space to pause and choose how we want to respond, instead of letting our emotions control us. When we bring mindfulness into our daily lives, silence becomes more than just not speaking. It becomes a way of being. We no longer need to fill the quiet with words or actions. Instead, we can be fully present, fully aware. And when we are present, we can listen, not just to others, but to ourselves. How often do we truly listen? Not just to what people are saying, but to what's underneath the words. Silence allows us to hear more. When we are quiet, we can tune into the subtleties of life. The tone of someone's voice, the emotions they're not expressing, or even the things left unsaid. This is the power of mindfulness and silence. It allows us to go beyond the surface and understand things on a deeper level. In Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness often goes hand in hand with meditation. But meditation doesn't always mean sitting in stillness for hours. It can be as simple as taking a moment to breathe deeply, to observe the world around you, or to notice how you feel. This is the practice of mindfulness in everyday life. It's about being aware of the present moment, no matter what's happening. Take a moment to think about your daily routine. How often do you rush through tasks without really paying attention? Maybe you're eating lunch while scrolling through your phone, or you're talking to someone but already thinking about what you'll say next. These moments are opportunities to practice mindfulness, to bring silence into your life, even if just for a few seconds. When you practice mindfulness, even the most mundane tasks can become acts of meditation. Washing the dishes, for example, can be a moment of mindfulness. Instead of thinking about the next thing on your to-do list, focus on the sensation of the water, the movement of your hands, the feeling of the dish becoming clean. In that moment, you're fully present, and the mind becomes silent. Mindfulness and silence also helps us to understand ourselves better. When we're constantly surrounded by noise, both external and internal, it's hard to hear our true selves. But in the stillness of mindfulness, we can begin to see things as they really are. We can notice our patterns, our habits, and our reactions. And once we're aware of them, we can start to change them. For instance, you might notice that certain situations trigger a reaction in you. Maybe you become anxious when someone criticizes you, or you get angry when things don't go your way. Through mindfulness, you can observe these reactions without judgment and ask yourself, why do I feel this way? Over time, this awareness allows you to break free from those automatic responses and choose a different path. This is the essence of mindfulness and silence. It's about creating space between stimulus and response. It's about finding that moment of pause where you can choose how to act instead of being driven by habit or emotion. So, how can you start bringing mindfulness into your life? Start small. The next time you find yourself in a stressful situation, take a deep breath. Instead of reacting immediately, pause. Notice how you feel, observe your thoughts, and allow yourself to sit with that silence. In that silence, you'll find clarity, and in that clarity, you'll find peace. Remember, mindfulness isn't something that happens overnight. It's a practice, and like any practice, it takes time. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And soon, you'll find that silence isn't something to fear or avoid. It's a powerful tool for self-discovery, peace, and wisdom. When we embrace mindfulness, we begin to see that silence isn't empty. It's full of potential, full of understanding, full of peace. And in that silence, we find the space to be truly ourselves. Let mindfulness be your guide, and let silence be your teacher. Through them, you'll find a deeper connection to yourself and the world around you. Overcoming inner noise. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to sit in silence, but your mind just won't quiet down? Even when the world around you is still, Your thoughts are loud, jumping from one thing to another. It's like a radio in your head that you can't turn off. That's what we call inner noise, and it's something we all deal with every day. You may think, why can't I just stop thinking? But here's the truth. It's not about stopping your thoughts. That's not how the mind works. Instead, it's about learning how to deal with them, how to observe them without getting carried away. The noise inside your head is like a wild river, always flowing, always moving. If you jump in, you'll get swept away. But if you stand by the riverbank, you can watch the water flow without being pulled into the current. So, how do we deal with this inner noise? How do we find peace when our minds are filled with endless chatter? Buddhism teaches us that the first step is awareness. You can't change what you don't understand, right? So, you have to start by noticing the noise. Notice how your thoughts run from one thing to the next. Notice how they pull you into stories, worries, plans, and regrets. Just observe. Now, this may sound simple, but it's not always easy. Our minds are used to being busy. We're trained to think, to analyze, to plan. We're always thinking about what's next or what went wrong in the past. But here's the key. You don't have to fight your thoughts. You don't have to push them away. Instead, you just let them be. You watch them like you'd watch clouds drift across the sky. Let's say you're sitting quietly, trying to meditate or just relax. A thought pops into your head, like, did I lock the door? Or, what will happen tomorrow at work? In that moment, instead of jumping into that thought and letting it spiral into more worries, you simply acknowledge it. Oh, there's a thought. And then you let it pass. Just like that cloud in the sky, it will float away if you don't grab onto it. This is what we call detachment in Buddhism. It's the ability to observe without attachment. When you're detached, you don't get stuck in your thoughts. You don't cling to them or try to fix them. You just let them come and go, like waves on the shore. They rise, and then they fall. Now, you might be thinking, but my thoughts are so important. I need to figure things out. And yes, sometimes our thoughts are useful, but more often than not, they're just noise. Unnecessary, repetitive, and draining. The more we focus on them, the more tangled up we get. But when we step back, we create space. And in that space, we find clarity. One of the teachings in Zen Buddhism is that the mind is like a pond. When the water is still, it reflects everything clearly, like a mirror. But when the water is disturbed, when it's full of ripples and waves, everything looks distorted. The same goes for our minds. When we're calm and centered, we see things as they really are. But when our minds are full of noise, we can't think clearly. We react impulsively, we get caught up in emotions, and we lose our sense of peace. So, how do we still the waters of the mind? One of the most powerful tools we have is mindfulness. Mindfulness means being fully present in the moment, without judgment. It's about paying attention to what's happening right now, instead of getting lost in the noise of our thoughts. When you're mindful, you're not thinking about what happened yesterday or worrying about tomorrow. You're here, in this moment. A simple way to practice mindfulness is by focusing on your breath. Your breath is always with you, and it's a powerful anchor to the present moment. When you notice your mind getting noisy, gently bring your attention back to your breath. Feel the air as it enters your nose, fills your lungs, and then leaves your body. Don't try to control it, just observe it. This simple practice can help calm the inner noise and bring you back to a place of stillness. But remember, mindfulness is not just something you practice while sitting in meditation. You can bring mindfulness into every part of your life. When you're eating, be mindful of the taste and texture of your food. When you're walking, feel the ground beneath your feet. When you're talking to someone, really listen to them, instead of thinking about what you're going to say next. The more mindful you become, the less noise there will be in your mind, because you're focused on what's real, what's happening right now. Now, let's talk about something important: patience. Learning to quiet the inner noise takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. You might sit down to meditate and feel like your mind is louder than ever. That's okay. The goal is not to force the mind into silence. The goal is to create space between you and your thoughts, to become an observer of the noise rather than a participant in it. Think of it like training a wild animal. At first, the animal will resist. It will fight and try to run away. But with patience and gentle persistence, it will start to calm down. The mind is the same. It will resist at first, but with time and practice, it will start to quiet down. It's also important to be kind to yourself during this process. Don't judge yourself if your mind is noisy. Don't get frustrated if you can't quiet your thoughts right away. This is part of the journey. Every time you notice the noise and gently bring yourself back to the present moment, you're making progress. Every time you choose to observe your thoughts instead of getting caught up in them, you're cultivating inner peace. In Buddhism, we believe that true peace comes from within. It's not something you can find outside of yourself. It doesn't come from having the perfect job, the perfect relationship, or the perfect life. It comes from quieting the inner noise and finding stillness within yourself. And once you find that stillness, nothing in the outside world can disturb your peace. So, as you move forward in your journey, remember this. The noise in your mind is not who you are. You are the space behind the noise. You are the awareness that watches the thoughts come and go. And in that awareness, you will find a deep and lasting peace. Overcoming inner noise is not about silencing your mind completely. It's about learning to live with the noise in a way that doesn't disturb your peace. It's about finding the calm within the storm, the stillness within the chaos. And when you can do that, you'll discover a whole new level of freedom and clarity in your life. The wisdom of non-reaction. Let me tell you a simple story. There was once a wise monk, living peacefully in a small village. Every day, people would come to him for advice and guidance. One day, a man came to the monk, very angry. He shouted at the monk, insulted him, and tried to provoke a reaction. But the monk stayed calm, simply sitting in silence, smiling softly. After a while, the man became even angrier because the monk wasn't reacting. Finally, exhausted, the man stormed off. The monk's student, who had witnessed the whole event, was puzzled. He asked, "Master, why didn't you say anything? That man insulted you terribly." The monk replied, "If someone gives you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The student thought for a moment and then replied, "To the person who offered it." The monk nodded. "Exactly. I did not accept his anger, so it still belongs to him." This simple story teaches us a powerful lesson about the wisdom of non-reaction. In life, people will try to provoke us, challenge us, and push our buttons. But we don't have to accept their anger, their frustration, or their negativity. When we choose not to react, we hold on to our peace, and that is true power. In Buddhism, non-reaction is seen as one of the greatest forms of wisdom. It's not about being passive or weak. It's about understanding that we don't need to engage with every bit of negativity that comes our way. By staying calm and centered, we keep our energy, our peace of mind, and our control over the situation. Think about how often we react without thinking. Someone says something rude to us, and immediately, we snap back. We feel the need to defend ourselves, to explain, to fight back. But what happens when we react in anger? Usually, it just escalates the situation, right? The other person gets more defensive, we get more upset, and before we know it, things have spiraled out of control. But what if, instead of reacting, we simply paused? What if we allowed the moment to pass without jumping in? That's what non-reaction is all about. It's the ability to step back, observe the situation, and choose not to respond in a way that adds more fuel to the fire. Now, this doesn't mean we should ignore everything or be indifferent. It means we take a mindful approach to our responses. Instead of reacting on impulse, we respond with intention and wisdom. In Buddhism, this is called right speech and right action. We don't let our emotions control us. Instead, we act from a place of calm awareness. You might wonder, but if I don't react, won't people think I'm weak or indifferent? It's a common fear. But the truth is, non-reaction often makes you appear stronger. When you stay calm in a difficult situation, people notice. It's as if your silence speaks louder than words. They realize you're not easily rattled, and that's a powerful message in itself. Let's take another everyday example. Imagine you're in a conversation, and someone criticizes you harshly. Your first instinct might be to defend yourself, explain why they're wrong, or even criticize them back. But what happens if you don't react right away? What if you simply listen, take a deep breath, and choose not to respond in anger? Often, the other person will eventually calm down. In the silence, they might even start to question their own harsh words. Non-reaction confuses people. They expect a fight, a debate, a conflict. But when you don't give it to them, it forces them to reflect. Your silence holds a mirror up to their behavior, making them see their own actions more clearly. And in that space, real change can happen. In Buddhism, non-reaction is deeply connected to the practice of mindfulness. When we are mindful, we are fully present in the moment, aware of our thoughts, feelings, and reactions. This awareness gives us the ability to pause before reacting. We can observe our emotions without being controlled by them. Instead of reacting out of anger or frustration, we can choose to respond with wisdom and compassion. This doesn't mean non-reaction is easy. It takes practice. In moments of high emotion, it's natural to want to react quickly. But the more we practice mindfulness, the more we train our minds to pause, breathe, and choose a wiser response. One of the key teachings in Buddhism is that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. Life will throw challenges our way. People will be rude, circumstances will be unfair, and things will not always go according to plan. But we have the power to choose how we react. We can either add more negativity to the situation, or we can rise above it, maintaining our peace and inner calm. The next time you find yourself in a difficult situation, try practicing non-reaction. Take a deep breath, pause, and observe your thoughts and feelings. Ask yourself, do I need to react right now? Will my reaction help the situation or make it worse? Often, you'll find that staying silent or responding calmly is far more effective than getting caught up in the heat of the moment. And remember, non-reaction doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It means choosing your battles wisely. There are times when action is needed, but it should come from a place of strength and calm, not from impulsive reactions. In fact, when we act from a place of calm, our actions are often more powerful and effective. In the end, non-reaction is about protecting your peace. It's about not letting the world dictate your emotions. It's about being the master of your own mind, rather than a slave to the chaos around you. When we master the art of non-reaction, we become unshakable. We no longer get dragged into every drama or conflict. We stay grounded, calm, and in control. So, as you go through your day, practice this wisdom of non-reaction. When someone tries to provoke you, remember the monk and the gift. Don't accept the negativity they're offering. Keep your peace and let their anger belong to them. In doing so, you will find that you are stronger, calmer, and more in control than ever before. The art of detachment. Imagine you are holding a glass of water. You grip it tightly, afraid to let go. Your hand begins to hurt, and yet, you don't loosen your grip. Why? Because you believe if you let go, you'll lose something important. But the truth is, the tighter you hold, the more pain you feel. Now, imagine if you simply released your grip. The glass is still there, resting in your palm, but your hand is no longer strained. This is the art of detachment. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. In life, we hold on to many things. Our thoughts, our emotions, our possessions, our relationships. We believe these things define us, that they give us value or control. But in reality, the more we cling, the more we suffer. Buddhism teaches that detachment is not about giving up everything. It's about finding peace and not needing to control everything. Think about the last time you were upset. Maybe someone said something hurtful, or perhaps you didn't get the outcome you were hoping for. You probably replayed the situation over and over in your mind, clinging to those feelings of anger, disappointment, or frustration. But did holding on to those emotions help? Or did it just keep the pain alive? When we detach, we learn to let go of these unnecessary burdens. We acknowledge our feelings, but we don't let them control us. We see them for what they are, temporary, fleeting experiences, and we allow them to pass through us without clinging to them. Detachment, in its purest form, is freedom. It's the understanding that nothing is permanent, and that trying to hold on to what is constantly changing will only lead to suffering. In Buddhism, this idea is central to understanding the nature of life itself. Everything is impermanent. Our thoughts, our emotions, our bodies, even the people around us, they are all constantly changing. When we resist this truth, we create suffering for ourselves. A Zen master once said, "Let go or be dragged." If we refuse to detach, we are like someone being pulled through life by a wild horse, constantly struggling, constantly in pain. But when we let go, we allow ourselves to walk freely. We move with life, rather than against it. Detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent. It simply means you recognize that holding on too tightly brings suffering. When we practice detachment, we allow ourselves to experience life fully, but without being consumed by it. We enjoy the moment, but we don't cling to it. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you're watching a beautiful sunset. The colors in the sky are stunning, and for a moment, you are completely absorbed in its beauty. But as the sun begins to set, you start to feel a sense of sadness. You want to hold on to that moment, to freeze it in time. You take pictures, you try to capture it, but no matter what you do, the sun continues to set. Eventually, the sky grows dark. If you cling to that feeling of loss, you miss the beauty of the night that follows. But if you let go, you can appreciate each moment as it comes, without needing to hold on to it. In Buddhism, detachment is a practice. It's not something you achieve overnight. It takes time, patience, and mindfulness. It starts with small things, learning to let go of minor irritations, small disappointments, and daily frustrations. Over time, as we practice detachment, we find that we are more at peace with ourselves and the world around us. But detachment isn't just about letting go of negative emotions. It's also about letting go of our need for constant pleasure and comfort. We often cling to things that bring us temporary joy, whether it's a new possession, a compliment, or an exciting experience. But these things, too, are fleeting. When we rely on them for our happiness, we set ourselves up for disappointment. The more we cling to pleasure, the more we fear losing it. The art of detachment teaches us to find contentment within ourselves, rather than in external things. It doesn't mean we stop enjoying life. It means we stop depending on external circumstances for our happiness. When we detach, we realize that true peace and happiness come from within. Think of a tree in a storm. The wind blows fiercely, the branches sway, but the tree remains rooted. It bends with the wind, but does not break. Detachment is like that. It allows us to bend with the changes in life without being uprooted by them. We remain grounded, even when the world around us is in turmoil. When we practice detachment in our relationships, we learn to love without clinging. We appreciate the people in our lives, but we don't try to control them. We give them the space to grow, to change, to be themselves. We understand that everyone is on their own journey, and that trying to hold on too tightly will only cause pain, for us and for them. Detachment allows us to love more freely, without fear, without jealousy, without the need to possess. In the same way, we learn to detach from our thoughts. Our minds are constantly racing, filled with worries, fears, desires, and expectations. But not every thought deserves our attention. When we practice detachment, we observe our thoughts without getting caught up in them. We see them come and go, like clouds passing through the sky. We don't need to chase after them or let them define us. We are not our thoughts, and when we detach from them, we find a sense of calm and clarity. The art of detachment is about living in the present moment. It's about accepting life as it is, without trying to control or cling to it. It's about understanding that everything is temporary, and that the more we try to hold on, the more we suffer. So, how do we practice detachment in our daily lives? Start by becoming aware of what you are holding on to. Are there emotions, thoughts, or expectations that you're clinging to? Notice how they make you feel. Do they bring you peace, or do they create tension and stress? Next, practice letting go, even if it's just for a moment. When you feel yourself getting caught up in a thought or emotion, take a deep breath and remind yourself that this too shall pass. Detach from the need to control the outcome. Allow life to unfold naturally, without forcing it. Finally, remember that detachment is not about avoiding life. It's about engaging with life fully, but without attachment. It's about experiencing each moment, each emotion, each thought, without needing to cling to it. It's about finding peace in the midst of change and freedom in the midst of uncertainty. As you continue on this journey, remember, The art of detachment is not about losing anything. It's about gaining the freedom to live with more clarity, more peace, and more joy. Achieving emotional mastery through silence. In the dance of life, there are moments when emotions rise like stormy seas. The question is, how do we navigate these turbulent waters without being swept away? Imagine standing in the middle of a raging storm. The winds howl, the waves crash, and every gust seems to shake your very core. How do you remain steady? How do you find calm amid the chaos? The answer lies in silence. When emotions run high, we often react without thinking. Anger flares, sadness overwhelms, and fear grips our hearts. In these moments, our reactions can create more turbulence. But what if we learn to harness the power of silence? What if, instead of reacting impulsively, we allowed ourselves a moment of stillness to understand our feelings? In the teachings of Zen, silence is not merely the absence of sound. It is a space where we can observe our emotions without becoming entangled in them. Think of it as a clear, still pond. When the surface is calm, we can see deep into the water. But when it's disturbed, the reflections become murky. Emotions, like ripples on the water, can cloud our judgment. Silence allows the pond to settle, revealing the clarity beneath. Consider a time when you felt intense frustration or anger. Did you lash out immediately, only to regret your words later? This is where silence becomes a powerful tool. By pausing and allowing the storm of emotions to pass, you give yourself the chance to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. In that pause, you create a space where you can choose how to engage with your feelings. In Buddhism, there is a practice called mindful breathing. It's a simple yet profound technique. When emotions arise, you focus on your breath. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. With each breath, you create a moment of silence within yourself. This small pause helps to calm the mind and gives you the clarity to respond with intention rather than reaction. Imagine you are in a heated discussion with someone. Both of you are emotionally charged, and the conversation is growing more intense. Instead of matching their energy with your own, you take a deep breath and remain silent for a moment. This silence does not mean you are withdrawing or ignoring the situation. It means you are creating space to gather your thoughts and emotions. In that pause, you may notice that your feelings start to settle. The anger that once felt overwhelming begins to fade. The clarity you gain in that moment allows you to choose your words more carefully, to communicate more effectively. The power of silence transforms what could be a destructive exchange into a constructive conversation. Zen Master Dogen said, "To practice Zen is to be intimately connected with oneself." When we embrace silence, we connect with our inner self, our true feelings. This connection allows us to understand our emotions more deeply. It helps us to recognize the underlying causes of our feelings and to address them with wisdom rather than impulsive reactions. Emotional mastery through silence is not about suppressing feelings. It's about acknowledging them and allowing them to pass without becoming overwhelmed. It's about creating a moment of stillness where you can observe your emotions, understand their roots, and choose how to act from a place of calm and clarity. In your daily life, practice this form of emotional mastery. When you feel overwhelmed, take a moment to pause and breathe. Create a space of silence within yourself. Use this space to reflect on your emotions and to respond with intention. Over time, you'll find that this practice not only helps in managing your emotions, but also in building more harmonious relationships with others. Silence in this context is like a gentle anchor, keeping you grounded amidst the stormy seas of emotional turmoil. It helps you to remain steady, to respond with wisdom, and to maintain your inner peace. By embracing silence, you harness its power to achieve emotional mastery, transforming how you engage with the world and how you experience your own inner life. So, remember, when emotions rise and the storm threatens to overwhelm you, turn to silence. Let it be your guide, your calm amidst the chaos. Embrace its power, and you will find that you navigate the emotional currents of life with greater ease and clarity. Silence as a tool for personal transformation. In the quiet of your own mind, you find a space untouched by the noise of the world. This space, though often overlooked, holds the key to personal transformation. When you learn to harness the power of silence, you begin a journey of profound change. Imagine a still pond. When it is calm, it reflects the world perfectly. But when it's disturbed, it becomes murky, and the reflections become distorted. Our minds are like that pond. When overwhelmed with constant chatter and distractions, clarity is lost. But when we embrace silence, we allow our minds to settle, revealing a clearer view of ourselves and our lives. Personal transformation begins in this silence. It's in these quiet moments that you can truly listen to yourself. Without the clamor of daily life, you hear your own thoughts and feelings more clearly. This is where real change starts, not in the noise of our conversations or the rush of our activities, but in the stillness of our inner world. In Buddhism, silence is not just the absence of sound, but a presence of awareness. When you sit in silence, you are not merely doing nothing. You are practicing a form of deep listening. This practice helps you understand your true self, your desires, and your fears. It is through this deep listening that you begin to see yourself more clearly and make meaningful changes. Transformation through silence requires patience. It is easy to be restless when we first try to embrace silence. Our minds might wander, and we might feel uncomfortable. But it is through this discomfort that we start to grow. Just as the pond must first become turbulent before it can settle, so too must our minds confront their own noise before they can find peace. Take a moment each day to sit in silence. Find a quiet space where you can be alone with your thoughts. As you sit, focus on your breath and let your thoughts come and go without judgment. This simple practice helps to clear the mental clutter, allowing you to connect with your true self. In these moments of quiet, you may find answers to questions you didn't even know you were asking. This practice of silence also helps in managing your emotions. When faced with a difficult situation, instead of reacting immediately, take a moment to pause. This pause allows you to respond with greater clarity and calmness. It is in these moments of reflection that you can make better choices and avoid acting out of impulse. Silence teaches you about balance. It helps you understand that not every moment needs to be filled with activity or conversation. There is value in stillness. It allows you to recharge and regain your energy. Just as nature has its cycles of activity and rest, so too should you allow yourself periods of silence and reflection. Through the practice of silence, you become more attuned to your inner self. You start to recognize patterns in your thoughts and behaviors. This awareness is the first step toward transformation. By understanding these patterns, you can begin to make conscious changes in your life. You can choose to respond differently, to act with greater intention, and to live more authentically. Silence also fosters compassion. When you take the time to listen, not just to others but to yourself, you cultivate empathy and understanding. You begin to see the world from different perspectives. This deeper understanding allows you to connect with others on a more meaningful level, enhancing your relationships and fostering greater harmony in your interactions. In Buddhism, silence is seen as a path to enlightenment. It is through quiet contemplation that one can gain insights into the nature of existence and the self. This is not something that happens overnight, but through consistent practice. The more you embrace silence, the more you open yourself to profound insights and personal growth. Remember, the journey of transformation through silence is unique for everyone. It is not about achieving a perfect state of stillness, but about finding moments of quiet that resonate with you. Each person's experience will be different, but the benefits of this practice are universal. As you continue to explore the power of silence, be gentle with yourself. Transformation takes time, and it requires patience. Embrace the process and trust that each moment of silence brings you closer to your true self. In the quiet, you will find the space to grow, to heal, and to transform. In the end, silence is a powerful tool. It is not merely the absence of noise, but a gateway to deeper understanding and personal transformation. Embrace it, practice it, and let it guide you on your journey of growth and self-discovery. The practice of compassionate silence. In the quiet spaces between words, we find the essence of compassion. True compassion does not always come from what we say, but from the silent understanding we offer to others. In the world of Zen, silence is a profound practice of empathy. It is not merely the absence of sound, but the presence of deep, mindful attention. When we practice compassionate silence, we are not ignoring or dismissing others. Rather, we are creating a space where their true feelings and thoughts can emerge without the noise of our own judgments or responses. In moments of silence, we allow others to be heard in their own way, and in that quiet presence, we offer them the greatest gift of all, the space to truly express themselves. Imagine a friend comes to you in distress. They are overwhelmed, their words tangled in emotions. Often, we feel compelled to offer advice or solutions. But what if instead, we simply sat in silence with them? In that silence, without uttering a word, we convey our full, undivided attention. We do not need to fix their problems. We need only to be present. This compassionate silence creates a sanctuary where they feel safe to share their burdens and find their own way through their difficulties. In Zen practice, compassionate silence is a way to connect with others on a deeper level. It transcends the superficial exchanges of daily conversation and touches the heart of what it means to truly listen. When we listen in silence, we are fully engaged with the speaker's experience. We are not distracted by our own thoughts or reactions. We are simply there, with open hearts and minds, ready to receive whatever is offered. This form of silence requires patience and presence. It is easy to become impatient, to jump in with our own ideas and solutions. But in practicing compassionate silence, we learn to hold our own impulses in check and to allow others to navigate their own paths. This is not an act of detachment, but of deep involvement. We are fully present, but we do not impose ourselves on the moment. Consider the Zen master who sits silently with their students. They do not rush to provide answers or advice. Instead, they offer a space where the students can explore their own thoughts and feelings. This silent presence allows the students to confront their own inner struggles and to find their own insights. The master's silence is not passive. It is a powerful force that guides and supports from the background. In daily life, compassionate silence can transform our interactions. When we respond with patience and openness, we create an environment where others feel valued and understood. This can be particularly powerful in moments of conflict or disagreement. Rather than escalating tensions with words, we can choose to remain silent, allowing space for emotions to settle and for clearer communication to emerge. This practice of compassionate silence also extends to how we treat ourselves. In moments of self-reflection or self-criticism, we can practice being gently silent with ourselves. Instead of berating ourselves with negative thoughts, we can offer ourselves the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a friend in need. This inner silence allows us to process our emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Compassionate silence is a practice of letting go. It is a way of stepping back and allowing the natural flow of conversation and experience to unfold without our interference. It teaches us that our presence alone, without the need for words, can be a powerful force for connection and healing. In the quiet of compassionate silence, we discover a profound truth, that true understanding and connection do not always come from speaking, but from being present. It is in these silent moments that we connect most deeply with others and with ourselves. We learn that compassion is not just an act of speaking kindly, but of listening deeply and responding with presence. As we cultivate this practice of compassionate silence, we begin to see the world in a new light. We understand that silence can be a bridge between hearts, a space where true connection and understanding are born. In every silent moment, we have the opportunity to practice compassion, to be present, and to offer the gift of our undivided attention. In this way, silence becomes not just a retreat from noise, but a profound expression of love and empathy. It is in the spaces between our words that the deepest connections are made, and the most meaningful exchanges occur. Through compassionate silence, we offer ourselves and others the chance to experience the true essence of connection and understanding, achieving emotional mastery through silence. In the stillness of silence, there lies a profound power. Picture this. You are faced with a storm of emotions, anger, frustration, sadness. The world around you buzzes with noise, yet within the quiet space of your own mind, you find a sanctuary. Here, in this serene place, emotional mastery begins. It is through silence that we learn to understand and control our inner world, transforming turmoil into tranquility. Imagine a calm pond. When it is disturbed, the water churns and ripples. But when left undisturbed, It reflects the sky perfectly, clear, and serene. Your mind is much like this pond. When bombarded with emotional turbulence, it becomes murky, obscuring the reflection of your true self. Silence is the gentle touch that stills the pond, allowing clarity to emerge. When emotions arise, they often come with a rush, a torrent that demands immediate reaction. Yet, if you pause, just for a moment, before reacting, you create a space between stimulus and response. In this pause, silence is your ally. It gives you the chance to observe your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. This is the essence of emotional mastery, recognizing that you are not merely a victim of your feelings but the master of your responses. Buddhism teaches that emotions are like passing clouds. They appear, drift across the sky of our mind, and eventually dissipate. By observing these emotions in silence, without judgment or attachment, you allow them to pass naturally. This practice helps you realize that emotions are temporary and do not define you. They are simply visitors in the vast expanse of your consciousness. When you embrace silence, you start to notice how emotions come and go. For instance, anger might arise from a perceived injustice, but if you remain silent and allow yourself to feel it without reacting, you'll see that its intensity fades. This is because emotions, when not fueled by reaction, lose their grip on your mind. Silence allows you to process and understand these feelings from a place of calm. Silence in the face of emotional upheaval does not mean suppression. It means choosing not to react impulsively. Suppression is like pushing emotions down, which can cause them to resurface later, often more intensely. True emotional mastery through silence involves acknowledging your emotions, observing them without judgment, and choosing your response with clarity. Consider the practice of mindful breathing. In moments of emotional distress, focusing on your breath is a form of silence. It centers your attention away from the storm of emotions and towards the calm rhythm of your breath. This simple act of focusing on your breath helps ground you, offering a respite from emotional chaos. It's in these moments of focused silence that emotional clarity and control are nurtured. In daily life, emotional mastery through silence manifests in how we handle relationships and conflicts. When someone raises their voice or reacts harshly, responding with silence can often disarm them. Your quiet presence offers them a chance to reflect on their words and actions. This creates a space where misunderstandings can be resolved with greater ease and where genuine communication can flourish. Buddhist teachings highlight that true emotional control comes from within. By practicing silence and mindfulness, you develop a deeper understanding of your emotional responses. This understanding helps you navigate life's challenges with grace and composure. Silence becomes a tool not just for personal reflection, but for interacting harmoniously with others. In meditation, silence allows you to explore the depths of your own mind. It is in these quiet moments that you can observe your thought patterns and emotional responses without interference. This self-awareness is crucial for emotional mastery, as it helps you identify and understand the roots of your reactions. The more you practice this inner silence, the more adept you become at managing your emotions in daily life. The journey to emotional mastery through silence is ongoing. It requires patience and practice. Just as a pond needs time to calm after being disturbed, your mind needs time to find its natural state of peace. Each moment of silence you embrace strengthens your ability to handle emotions with wisdom and equanimity. Remember, silence is not a void but a space filled with potential. It is in the quiet moments that you discover your true self and gain control over your emotional landscape. By embracing silence, you cultivate a deeper connection to your inner self, leading to greater emotional stability and mastery. So, as you continue your journey, let silence be your guide. In the midst of emotional storms, find refuge in the calm of your own presence. Let the power of silence help you transform your reactions and achieve a state of emotional mastery that brings peace and clarity to your life. Achieving emotional mastery through silence. In the quiet of the forest, the trees stand still, yet they know the secrets of the wind. Silence is their language, and in that silence, they master the storm. This same stillness can guide us to a profound understanding of our own emotions. When we embrace silence, we find a powerful ally in mastering our feelings. Imagine a still pond. When you throw a stone into it, ripples spread out, disturbing the calm. But when the water is undisturbed, it reflects perfectly, showing us the world as it is. Our emotions are like that pond. When we react immediately, we create ripples that cloud our judgment. But if we can pause and let the ripples settle, we gain a clear view of our feelings and the situation. Emotional mastery through silence is a practice of observing without interference. In moments of anger, sadness, or frustration, we often feel the urge to speak or act immediately. However, this is where silence becomes our guide. By choosing not to react right away, we allow our emotions to settle, giving us clarity. In this quiet space, we can understand our feelings better and choose how to respond thoughtfully. In Zen practice, this principle is known as non-reactive awareness. When a thought or feeling arises, instead of immediately reacting, we observe it like a passing cloud. We do not cling to it or push it away. We simply watch and let it drift by. This allows us to respond with a clear mind rather than a turbulent one. Consider a moment of conflict with a loved one. When emotions are high, words can cut deeply and actions can cause lasting harm. But if we take a step back and allow ourselves a moment of silence, we give ourselves the opportunity to reflect. This pause helps us understand the root of our emotions and the best way to address the situation with compassion and wisdom. In daily life, silence can be a powerful tool for managing our emotional responses. When we find ourselves in a stressful situation, taking a moment to breathe deeply and be silent can help us regain control. This brief pause allows our mind to calm and our emotions to stabilize, leading to more measured and thoughtful actions. Silence is not about suppression, but about understanding. When we embrace silence, we create space to explore our emotions without judgment. We acknowledge our feelings and let them flow naturally, rather than being overwhelmed by them. This practice helps us develop emotional resilience, allowing us to face life's challenges with a balanced and calm demeanor. The Zen tradition teaches that true emotional mastery comes from within. It is not something we achieve by controlling external circumstances, but by mastering our inner world. Silence is the doorway to this inner mastery. It invites us to listen to our inner voice, to understand our true feelings, and to respond from a place of inner peace. When we practice silence in our daily interactions, we create a space for genuine connection. Instead of reacting impulsively, we listen deeply. This deep listening fosters empathy and understanding, allowing us to connect with others on a more profound level. It also helps us communicate more effectively, as our responses are guided by clarity and compassion rather than raw emotion. In moments of solitude, silence becomes a teacher. It shows us the patterns of our thoughts and emotions, revealing what lies beneath the surface. Through this quiet observation, we learn to navigate our inner landscape with greater ease, finding peace amidst the chaos of our minds. The practice of silence also teaches us patience. In a world that often values speed and immediacy, silence reminds us that true understanding and wisdom come with time. By allowing ourselves to be silent, we honor the process of growth and self-discovery, knowing that each moment of quiet is a step toward greater emotional mastery. To master our emotions through silence is to embrace a profound form of self-care. It allows us to step back from the noise and demands of daily life, to reconnect with our inner selves, and to approach each situation with a calm and centered mind. This practice not only enhances our emotional well-being, but also enriches our relationships and interactions with others. As we journey through life, let us remember that silence is not a void but a space of potential. It holds the key to understanding ourselves and others, offering a path to emotional mastery and inner peace. Embrace silence and let it guide you to a deeper connection with your true self. Conclusion: silence as the path to enlightenment. In the serene dance of life, silence is the gentle rhythm that guides us to our deepest truths. As we come to the end of our journey together, let us reflect on the profound role silence plays in our path to enlightenment. Silence is not merely the absence of noise. It is the presence of our truest self. Imagine a quiet pond, its surface smooth and still. The clarity of the water reflects the world around it without distortion. In the same way, silence in our minds allows us to see things clearly, without the ripples of constant thought and chatter. When we embrace silence, we create a space where our inner wisdom can surface, untainted by the noise of the external world. In Buddhism, silence is a doorway to deeper understanding. It is in silence that we find the space to observe our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. Without the interference of constant verbal expression, we can connect more deeply with our true selves. This connection is what leads us to enlightenment, a state of profound inner peace and understanding. Silence teaches us to be present. In the hustle and bustle of our daily lives, it is easy to get caught up in the noise and distractions. But when we take a moment to pause and be silent, we return to the present moment. We let go of worries about the past and fears about the future. In this present moment, we find the essence of our being. The power of silence is not about avoiding life's challenges or withdrawing from the world. Instead, it is about approaching life with a calm and centered mind. When we respond to situations with silence, we are not shutting ourselves off. We are choosing to engage with a deeper awareness. This awareness helps us to act with wisdom and compassion, rather than reacting out of impulse or emotion. Consider the lotus flower. It blooms most beautifully from the depths of the mud, reaching for the light while remaining rooted in stillness. In the same way, our silence is not a retreat from the world, but a foundation upon which our true potential can flourish. By embracing silence, we cultivate the inner calm that allows us to face life's challenges with grace and clarity. As we conclude, remember that silence is not just an absence but a presence. It is a powerful tool for personal transformation and spiritual growth. By learning to embrace silence, we open ourselves to the possibility of true understanding and enlightenment. In the quiet moments, we find the answers that words often cannot express. In your journey of life, let silence be your guide. Allow it to bring you peace and insight, and let it help you connect with the deeper truths of your existence. Silence is a gift, a sacred space where you can find clarity, wisdom, and a profound connection to the universe. Thank you for joining us on this journey of exploration and discovery. If you have found value in these teachings, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom Woven. Your support helps us continue to share these timeless insights with a wider audience. As you walk your path, may you find tranquility in the silence, and may it lead you to the enlightenment you seek. Embrace the quiet, cherish the stillness, and let it guide you to the deepest truths of your being. Farewell for now, and may your journey be filled with peace and wisdom.